Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So on today's video, we're going to be changing the spark plugs on my 2015 Toyota Sienna. This thing's got about 120,000 miles on it now, and it's about time to change these Iridium plugs on here. So on today's video, we'll go through all the steps on how to take everything apart so we can change all 6 spark plugs. So stay tuned. So here's all the parts we're going to need for this project right here. We're going to need these 3 gaskets right here. These are the gaskets for the intake manifold. You have to replace them every time you take that thing apart. In addition, we got the gasket for the throttle body because we're going to be removing that also, so we might as well replace that at the same time. I got that PCV valve right here. It's good practice to replace this the same time you're doing the spark plugs. This thing is the blow-by valve, and it's a check valve for your valve cover that goes into the intake, and it actually returns oil back into your intake plenum and all that. We're going to replace that at the same time. This is like a $5 part. In addition, I got these extra screws right here. I may not need them, but I just have them just in case I strip or mess up any of the hex heads on there. I know when I did my IS-250, I messed up a few of them, and I could have used these right here to replace them with. So these are the OEM spark plugs I have here. When you order OEM spark plugs, you got to be very careful that you're not ordering fake ones. I actually ordered a set from a Lexus dealer out in Arizona, and they actually sent me a fake set. After the fact, I realized that when I compared it to an OEM set. I'll show you the whole explanation I had on my Avalon video right now, and you can see what happened over there, and I'll show you all the different details on that. And the reason why I have 2 sets here, I wanted to go over an issue I had. I ordered both of these from a Lexus dealership out in Arizona. This set right here I ordered at a later time, and this is the first set I had ordered. At first glance, it looks exactly like these are the same ones, the same boxes and everything, but then I started looking because I bought 2 sets of these, one for the Sienna and one for the Avalon, and but I bought them at different times. I think I bought these in like 2022 and I bought these in 2023. I know I've been sitting on these for a while, just I haven't had a chance to replace everything. But I started looking after I saw some reviews and some comments about fake spark plugs, so I compared the 2 sets I got, and I found out that these I got from the dealership were actually fake. I started comparing the boxes at first, and I saw that the fake set, the red was a little bit off on all the boxes. The letters were fading and rubbing off, and they didn't look crisp and clear. As I compared to the real ones right here, everything was much better quality as far as the box goes. It wasn't beat up like that right there. And then I started comparing the actual plugs themselves. So on a lot of the forums and everything I saw online, the first telltale sign was the color of this thing up here. This one you could tell because the colors and everything look like they're painted on versus the actual metal. And then I started looking at the font and everything, and just all the stampings, and the stamping of the fake one just looks way off. And I looked at the real ones, and everything was much different on the real ones. And another thing I started looking at was the actual tip of the Iridium. On the fake ones, you could tell that the quality of them between the 6 I had were not all exactly the same versus the real ones. When I looked at the real ones, every single tip on all 6 of them was exactly made the same. It was all the same size, same consistency. When I looked at the fake ones, they all had different size tips. They had different colors. It wasn't a uniform color. It was like a coating or like a solder on another material. So I just started looking more and more into it. Then when I put them both side by side, I could tell even more that everything was different. You can see right here, just even on camera, this is the real side right here on the left, and the color of the tip on this side, you can see that color is way different, and it looked like it was painted on versus this thing being the actual metal right there. Then I started looking at the tip, like I said, and the tip on this side was much different. Then I started comparing like the stamping of Denso around the rim versus the fake ones, and the Denso on the fake ones was not stamped as deep, and each one of the 6 I had was all different sizes and different degrees of stamping, where the real ones were all exactly the same stamp, the same quality, and the same depthness, and everything was very well defined. Another telltale sign that people online told me to do was scratch the actual surface right here. So I scratched the fake ones, and you could tell the silver or the coating on the outside, and then there was like an aluminum color on the backside, which indicates that it's fake. On the real ones, you can scratch it and it's the same metal throughout. So it's the same material and it's solid material instead of a coated copper. So the next sign I saw reading online forums and online reviews was if you line up all the tips right here like this, all the Densos, the D's on them actually all line up exactly the same on these 3 right here, and it's consistent on all 6. On the fake ones, none of the Densos lined up with the D or the tip of these. They were just randomly all over the rim of it. So that's another telltale sign right there. So the moral of the story is, even though I got these from a legit Lexus dealer, for some reason they got a hold of some fake ones in their inventory. I contacted them about it and they actually ended up sending me a new set and took care of it all after I told them and I showed them all these photos and all these little details on this set. Just be careful when you buy these online, even from a dealer. They might be fake. You want to go through them and make sure they're good before you put them in, especially on this 2GR engine, which is a pain in the ass for the 3 on the back side to put in. So these things come pre-gapped from the factory with the correct setting, but if you want to double check it with a gauge, it's a 0.43 to 0.44 gap is what you want, so you want to make sure you check that before you start. So if you guys saw my earlier video, I actually changed the spark plugs on my Avalon, which has the same 2GR-FE engine. On the Avalon, it was much easier because I was able to do it without taking too much of this apart. But unlike the Avalon, this car has a much shorter engine bay, so most of the engine is actually tucked under this part of the actual cowl or the wiper, and we have to take all this apart to access it and get to the back so we get some of the bolts and actually reach the spark plugs back there. On this side, there's actually more room versus the Avalon. We can actually get to that bolt without taking too much off. Only problem is getting the clearance under here, which is pretty low on the wiper cowl. So even if we took that apart, it's just hard to work with without taking all this apart. First thing you want to do is just pop the engine cover off. This thing is just clipped on by a couple of push-on compression holes. Just pull it straight up and it pops right out. So the front 3 are very easy to change. They're right here. You actually just take them off with these 10mm and just pull the whole thing off. You don't even have to unplug the harness. Don't make that mistake because these things are very brittle. There's a 90% chance that this is going to break on you and it's going to screw you up. So you want to make sure you leave that and just pull this whole thing off away from the harness. Same with this plug right here, the cam sensor. When I was doing the Avalon, I took this thing apart and I actually broke it. So I actually have to replace that one. But you could probably pull this out without even taking that out. So you just got to move this thing around and just get to a little bit room. So pretty much for this video, I'm going to go ahead and take care of these on the front side here to show you how to do that. Then I'm going to time lapse on taking everything apart. If you want to know about how to take everything apart as far as the nuts and bolts, there's actually a pretty long, like 45-minute video on YouTube where there was a lady that went through all the different steps of doing this. You may want to check that out if you want to know the details. For our video, I'm just going to show you the meat and potatoes of actually doing the spark plugs. Everything else I'll just time lapse so you guys can see what I'm doing and see what I take apart to do this. So for the tool you need, make sure you get the spark plug remover with the little rubber inside so you can actually pull the thing out. So it actually grabs the spark plug and pulls it out. Here's what 120,000 mile Iridium plugs, Denso plugs, OEM look like. As you can see, the electrodes and everything are still pretty good on them. You do get a lot of carbon buildup and all this crap on it on this side. If it's like the Avalon, this side was actually the wet side that versus the other side. I'm suspecting the other side is going to be a little bit drier, but the ones I took out of mine were a little bit oily and wet on this side. So we'll see how it stacks up when we take the other 3 out. If you guys are changing yours for the first time without knowing if they've ever been changed, one thing I discovered on the Avalon is the back of these things, they actually have an X right there on them. And I think that indicates that these were original OEM out of the factory plugs versus the ones that you replace them with, because the replacement ones don't have that X etched into the ends here. Another thing too is to check your plugs, even your used ones, if you haven't hit the mileage yet. I think the maximum on the 2GR-FE is 0.055, which we're right at 0.055 maximum right here. So you can see the original, the new one is like a 0.4, like 0.043, so it's like back here somewhere. So that's the overall wear of it over the life of this. In addition, what I mentioned earlier, trying to get this out, so this thing actually was harder to get out because it's taped to here, so you could kind of cut that tape if you want to get it out without avoiding breaking it. But I unclipped it, and of course it broke. So this is a little casualty right here. I'll go ahead and replace it with one of the new ones I have. I have an OEM replacement for this. This right here is the OEM replacement for that plug, that individual coil pack plug. If you need the part number, this is the part number right here. You could actually figure out the part number for every single plug in the car by looking at the part number here. So the 90980 is always the first digits of the part number for Toyota. And then the last 5 digits, like the 11885, are actually on the plug itself, and you can see that on every single plug that's in the car. So when you put this thing back in, you want to just slightly put it in there and then pull this thing back out and take the rubber thing out. Or if you have a spare one without the rubber, you want to use that, so that way the thing doesn't get stuck in there. Once you get this thing hand tightened firmly, you want to double check by torquing it down. So this thing requires about a 13 to 14 foot-pound torque. So we'll go ahead and torque it down right now. So here's that replacement plug right here. You can see the part number if you look at it real closely right here. It's probably hard to catch on camera, but in real life you'll see that number right there on that clip. So to release this thing on the other side, what you do is you take this little white thing and you slide it up, and it kind of releases the locks on the pins. And then inside there's like some little clips that kind of compression fit and hold that wire in. You could use some special tools. I've got all these little keys right here I ordered on Amazon. If you want to check these out, I'll link them down in the description. But what they are is just a bunch of different size picks that help you kind of push in there and get these harnesses out. So this is a very useful tool if you mess with harnesses all the time. So we'll go ahead and pop these out and put it into the new clip one at a time so we don't screw up the wires. So after I pop that thing out, all the little clips inside are actually pretty brittle and broke, so you may not even need the tool to pop it out. So that was pretty easy to take apart actually, because all the little things inside were so brittle that they just broke right out and we could pull the wire out. But we got that thing in pretty easily. Just snap it in, slide that white clip in once you're done, and it locks it in and you're good to go. So that pretty much does it for the 3 on the front side. As you can see, this thing was the only casualty here. Just avoid unclipping this and you don't have to worry about replacing them and then breaking. The only time they're gonna break is if you actually tug on it or pull it apart. So we're good here, and we're gonna go to the hard part next. As far as the cowl goes, most of it is just clipped onto here. I've taken this thing apart once before to do some painting of this trim, because this thing is very cheap and it fades really fast. So actually a couple years ago I plasti dipped it. Even on today's project, once I take this thing apart, I'm gonna refinish it, clean it up a little bit, and then respray it again just to give it a fresh coat of paint. The one thing that's going to get screwed up once you take this thing apart is this thing. You actually have to put new 3M tape in just to tape it back to the fender, because that's the only way it sticks to here. Same with down here, it clips into that thing, but right along the edge here there's some 3M tape that you have to tape it back together with. To take apart the wipers, these little caps on the end, you just pop these things off and take apart the 14mm on both sides. Make sure you mark where your wiper is by putting a piece of tape or something onto the windshield so you know where to put it back, so it's all lined up once you do that. Alright, once we took the cowl apart, it was pretty easy. It was just all clips right here, and then you just unhook it from these side things, so you don't even have to take those side things off if you don't want to. I'm going to eventually just take it off right now once I'm finished with the rest of this, so I can refinish it as part of my refinish project on that cowl. But once we're in here, you want to go ahead and unplug this. This is the defroster for your wiper, so you want to go ahead and unplug that. So you want to go ahead and unplug the power for your wiper motor right here, and then unbolt the wiper motor assembly right here. So this thing is pretty much these two screws right here. I think they're 10 millimeters right there, and then there's a rubber grommet right here that just slides out of, so you just slide that over and this whole assembly comes out. There's actually another one hidden up here behind this black thing, so don't forget that piece. So there's 3 of those to take out. After that, you'll go ahead and take apart the 10 millimeters here along the back there to hold this thing in. The 2 14 millimeters that hold the strut on, you need to take those out, and then this whole thing just comes out in one piece. In addition, there's actually a wire harness that goes across here that's part of this whole assembly. You could pop those things out right here using that clip. You could use like a 12 millimeter on some of these big ones, or a 10 millimeter, and you push it and it presses the 2 sides together, and you can just go ahead and just pull it through from the back side. It was much easier and simpler than I thought it would be to take this thing apart. Just make sure you disconnect this resistor pack right here on that side, and that's kind of the last thing that you need to do to take this thing off once you take apart all the bolts. As you can see, we're in here now. It's wide open, a lot of space to work. We might be able to take this thing out without even worrying about the intake and everything, because now we got so much more room. One thing I noticed with the Siennas right here, there's a lot of crap that ends up sitting right here, and then even the corrosion on the top of these hats right here for the struts over time is just gonna kill that thing. I can see this bolt right here, and that's pretty corroded. That's just from all the moisture and water that sits here. I can imagine in the snow areas where you get a lot of salt spray, that thing's gonna be all gone and rusted and corroded by the time this thing hits 10 years. We'll go ahead and take apart all these bolts right here, take apart all this over here on a time lapse just to get this stuff out of the way. Went ahead and took everything apart here, did all the vacuum lines. So there's a vacuum line here, there was another vacuum line there. We unbolted the throttle body right there, that's 4 10 millimeters, and there's a little bracket at the bottom. I undid this right here, which is the PCV valve, so we loosened that up. I think that's pretty much everything there. Over here, we have to unplug this guy right here. So back here, what you're gonna do is you're gonna reach back here and you're gonna feel a bracket on here. This is the back side of this thing, and then there's a bracket down here. Then there's a 12 millimeter right onto the valve cover. You go ahead and undo that with a small ratchet and a socket. Over here, you'll reach right behind the throttle body and you'll feel another 12 millimeter right there, and this spot right here is very easy to get to, and that's it. Pretty much unbolt those 2 and then slide this whole thing off. Alright, so the next thing we're going to do is just go ahead and remove it. Everything's unbolted now and loose, so you just lift it up and kind of just wiggle it around and get it straight out. One hose I forgot is the brake booster hose on the back side, so I have to get some clips and pull that thing apart. Alright, we got that thing out. This thing is a little bit tight right here with these things right here. So I think the best way to do it is kind of go this way a little bit once you get past these little studs, and then try to slide it in this way on the side, so that way you don't mess up all your seals and stuff, because when I was pulling it, I was kind of shifting all those seals, but looks like there's some dirt accumulation. This is in between the seals. I'm gonna go ahead and vacuum this up so it doesn't go into the cylinder and just normal dust and dirt inside the engine. As far as the bracket goes, so this is that bracket right here that holds one of the bolts, and the other one is that hole right there on the valve cover. Once we're in here, we'll go ahead and unbolt this thing, undo some of these clips, kind of pull the harness up, get the 10 millimeters for the coil packs and just pull those all out. You can do all these in the back here without really breaking anything like I did on that front one and unclipping or any of that. So on this side, when I was taking this apart, you saw when I was struggling to get it out, this thing fell out and it got all dirty, so you just want to put that away. But you want to go just remove all these things because they're going to be replaced. along with the throttle body one over here. And then earlier, like I said, that bracket right here, that's the one that goes into the valve cover. The one right here is the one that goes right to the throttle body, on the back side of the throttle body that you screw into right there. And this was that brake hose on the back that I forgot to do and did last, so just remember to do that first. Or you could go ahead and just take the hose off the master cylinder side over by the booster. So the hose comes with it, just like this hose right here. Got everything back in, no casualties back here as far as breaking anything, so we're pretty much good back here. Got all the harnesses and bolts and everything all tightened back down. Most of these are all 10 millimeters, so it's going to be 9 to 10 foot-pounds on those. Make sure you apply about 13-14 pounds worth of torque onto the spark plugs to make sure they don't back out or vibrate out. So here's what 120,000 miles and 10 years does to these plugs. Pretty much end of life, but with these Iridiums, they do last a long time. As far as the change intervals for most Lexuses, it's anywhere from 90 to 100,000 miles or more you could go without changing these things. With these 2GR motors, it's such a pain in the ass to do that you kind of gotta hold out as long as you can, but pretty straightforward and easy if you have the right tools and you know what to take apart. So we'll go ahead, put all the gaskets all back together over here, and then bring this thing back over and put it back in. So a little trick on getting this thing in without everything kind of being really tight was that one bracket that goes into the valve cover. I loosened the 12 millimeter bolt right onto there, and I kind of let it jiggle around, and that way it can move, and I can move it and then get it into there and just make sure it gets past the coil packs and everything, and it lines up correctly once you get back there. Once you get in there, just go ahead and put the two 10 millimeters and then go ahead and start tightening everything on the back side down, and do those Allen keys last, so that way everything's nice and tight. The last thing we're going to do before we put everything back together is change the PCV valve right here. This thing's a 19 millimeter, comes off pretty easily, and just screw the new one on. So here's the old one right here with the new one. So what it is like a check valve that lets the oil into the intake manifold and recirculates back into the engine. So you can just shake it. It's a wear item, so this one still sounds like it's fine, but we always want to replace it. It's like a $5 or $6 part. That was pretty straightforward and easy. Pretty much everything's done. I'm gonna go ahead and clean up the engine bay and put everything back together. Hey guys, thanks for joining me all the way to the end of this video on doing the spark plugs on the Sienna. As you can see, it's a pretty labor intensive and pretty hard project to do, especially taking apart all the cowl and the wipers and all that stuff just to access the back 3, and you gotta kind of go slowly and do all that stuff. If you found this video useful, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed to my channel to stay on top of all my different DIY videos, go ahead and subscribe to the channel, turn on bell notifications to get notified every time I upload a video. For all these different projects, if I can do it, you guys can do it. I want to thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you guys next time.